Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
A little bit about that, but I wondered what you were trying to find out about it. What's your interest in it?
So I am writing an article for Keynotes for Aloha's magazine, and whenever a lock shop calls, I'll ask, do you see any Master Ring? And of course, almost no one has ever heard of it, and then even less people have experience with it. And it was more of just a conversation to enrich my understanding of Master Ring based on actual field experience, because I'm from Chicago and I hardly ever encountered it. But I didn't start in the industry until 1990, even though my family was 4 generations, total. I didn't bump into it. And but Detroit would be probably a great city for Master Ring.
Well, actually, the biggest city for the Master Ring is New York.
Uh-huh.
And to give you an idea why that is, a couple of the largest complexes in New York City used it. The Waldorf Astoria and Radio City Music Hall originally were equipped with the Master Ring Corbin, and they're extensive systems. I mean, they're into thousands of key changes. And to my knowledge, I think they're still using it. It's still supported by Corbin, the factory. They support that system, although very few people use it, and it was meant for very, very large master key systems because of the 2 shear lines. I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking, the vernacular I'm using. There are 2 shear lines within the lock. It's actually an old system, as it was invented in the late 1800s, to be exact. I believe it was 1889, and I've got a patent number if you wanted to ever look it up. And you can actually get the patent paper on it. It was invented by a locksmith, I believe in Washington, Seattle, Washington, and it was licensed to Corbin at that time. And they took it over, and of course they were like the only ones that did it for quite a while. Once the patent ran out, other large companies like Sargent and Yale never used it, but it was the only other company that came close to using it was Sargent, and that was for a very short time. But Corbin still supports that system, and I don't know if to give you an idea, you could use almost all the possible key changes where you can't do that on what they call a single shear line. It's actually 2 locks in one. The Master Ring is a whole nother lock within this lock. And that Master Ring is used for all masters of keys, submaster, master keys, maid keys, all the individual. And then you have another shear line that's just for the individual key. So you can use almost all the possibilities that you can acquire with a 6-pin lock, and they'll even drill it up to 7-pin, which makes the system very, very large. And, of course, then you have key waste, which increases it that many times over. Anyway, what were you interested in finding more about it, or?
I just merely speaking to someone who may have actually in their career have had clients walk in, here, rekey these, or hey, you got to come over here and rekey these cylinders, and it ends up being Master Ring. I do understand all of the vernacular used, and it's just because I'm only 50 years old and haven't had guys walk in and plop them down on the bench in front of you and say, here, fix it. I don't know. What is this thing?
Are you an architect, a locksmith?
No, well, we're traditionally hollow metal, and we're a door distributor. Chicago Builder Supply was the name of the company going back to the late 1930s, and I happen to be a certified registered locksmith. I just do that in parallel.
Oh, you're with Aloha, yeah.
Oh well, I don't make a living as a locksmith at all, but it's quite a pet love. It's a love of mine. And once I started to learn about the Master Ring and the fact that you can't exploit it via the Dayton method, and how if you were to run a multiplex, like a Z-class, pick a keyway, you could have, like you said, I mean, if I were to do a 7-pin, I could have damn near 250,000 changes at the master sleeve alone.
Right.
And so have you ever had an opportunity to actually physically work on them?
Oh yeah, I've keyed them. Sure, we do have them here in Detroit. Right now, I do work for some of the large buildings here in Detroit. The Fisher Building, which is affiliated with General Motors, their building that building is amazing. But they use unit locks there, but they're made by Sargent unit locks. The lock knobs were designed by an architect here in Detroit that was well known. Henry Ford used them for many buildings, but the lock was made by Sargent, and it's a unit lock, but it's not a master ring lock. It's a different type. It looks like a Corbin unit lock, but it's not. I know I worked on the Corbin unit locks. Yes, there's a whole. Corbin put out a magazine. Actually, it was it's more than a pamphlet. It was a booklet, a hand book on the Corbin Master Ring, and they gave you all the particulars on it, up to the point of even telling you what keyways were obsolete, what keyways they still support. Just about everything you'd ever want to know about the Master Ring. So if you were to get a hold of Corbin, they might send you that manual. It's a manual is what it is on the Corbin Master Ring.
Yeah.
That would be one way to get it, because Corbin, actually, which is the real parent company of what is now called Corbin Russwin, Corbin actually bought Russwin many, many years ago, around the early 1900s, and it became one company. But Corbin is the parent company. Russwin, the only part of Russwin they really wanted were two items because of the architectural. They were trying to bid on buildings that were going up around the turn of the century, and they couldn't do it because they didn't have all the hardware. They had no panic device, and they had no door closures. So Russwin had both. So Corbin bought Russwin, and they actually a Corbin panic bar is really a Russwin panic bar to this day, because Russwin invented that, and they were the ones that had it way before Corbin. Russwin today is really just the name of a keyway they're using. It has nothing to do with the company anymore. It's really Corbin that owns the whole thing. But you probably knew this anyway, but I'm just adding something in there for you if you wanted to know about it.
Deeply appreciated. When you've worked on mastering in the past, has it been cylinder out of a unit lock, I imagine?
I think I have some, we do have some mortise cylinders. They're termed, Corbin termed them in their catalog of the 1920s and 30s when they were really used a lot.
Yeah,
they coined it as a jumbo cylinder, it's called.
Jumbo,
what we today call a mogul cylinder. But they called it a jumbo cylinder. Of course, it was larger in diameter because of the master ring that was within that cylinder. And it's a special lock, mortise lock, that's only made by Corbin that will accept those cylinders because they're oversized.
And do you find that you would always top load that?
We normally would top load them, yeah. And they made that master ring in cylindrical lock sets too. A large complex here in Detroit, actually two of the oldest shopping centers in the world were in Detroit here. One on the east side, built in '57, and that's where I worked when I was a kid. And one built in '53, and they used the Corbin cylindrical lock sets with the master ring. So it's not really, it's a good system. It's very expensive, And Corbin doesn't push it much today, but it's available. Corbin's the only one you can get it from, though.
Yeah,
Yale,
that's true. They don't push it at all.
No, they don't push it. Yale actually counters that with something called a bicentric cylinder. I don't know if you've ever seen one.
Oh, certainly.
Bicentric cylinder has two plugs within one cylinder, one at the top and one at the bottom diagonally. And one is used for all master keys separately, and the other one is used for only change keys. And can you imagine the possibilities when you start using all the keyways that Yale offers? And I'll tell you, the largest installation of that is at the Pentagon, at the Pentagon in Washington. There, that's the largest installation of the bicentric cylinders right there. That's what they use. Now I think they switched to medical, but they were always with Yale. Yeah, the United States always used Yale. The post office and the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury used Yale. Just about everything to do with the government at one time used Yale because, well, being the foremost in the pin tumbler, that's probably why they did it. Anyway, yeah, I don't know if that information helps you or not, but
oh, no, it's
I can give you this. If you wanted to know a little bit more about it, I can give you a patent number. I just, as we were talking, I just ran through some stuff.
I actually have that. That was Edward O'Keefe, New York City locksmith. And it's a bit of a shame, though, because...
Oh, you do have that worm. Well, you know quite a bit about it. I can't be adding much to what you already know.
Yeah, but I just lacking the actual hands-on experience is why this is so important. Just speaking to someone who does, it's a bit of a shame because while access control is literally everywhere, and that's a great thing, I don't see the need for mechanical security going away. It will go away someday, but that's not in my lifetime.
No,
sure.
It's going to be around for a while. Locks, I mean, I'm quite a bit older than you, but locks, it takes a long time to switch from one to the other. I mean, we still have a certain amount of bit keys we're still using here in Detroit. To give you an idea how long it takes to make the transition.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and as a matter of fact, the reason why I believe in it, right now I have 2 patent pendings on a lock cylinder that I invented. And I'm waiting to do something with it. I'm going to be talking to one of my local distributors here in Detroit. IDN is the name of the company.
Oh, Hoffman, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Arnie. And see what he thinks, and maybe we can get a manufacturer to license this from me. It's kind of unique. I call it the Paradox as the name of the cylinder. It's a name I give it. Because of the security and the simplicity of it, I'm allowing you to pick the lock, and by you picking the lock is the reason why you can't pick the lock.
I like that.
The paradox. Really, you are allowed. Yeah, you can pick it, but you can't pick it because you were able to pick it is the reason why you can't pick it.
Yeah.
It goes to make it simple. You go into a trap, but you can get out of it. The only thing you can do is turn back, and which is nothing. Your fingernail can turn it back, and or the key or the lock pick or anything you put in there can turn it back. But you can always, if you're halfway good at lock picking, you can pick it, but you cannot go any further. Once it goes into what I determine as lockout, it then becomes in lockout. It becomes literally, not virtually, literally impossible to pick it beyond that point. It's impossible. You can't. But you can go back and start over again. Anyway, if you're interested in it, you might see it someday on the market, I hope. I don't know.
As do I. I will definitely keep my eyes peeled for it. It is a bit of a shame that a lot of this genius, not unlike what you've just described. The evolution of the cylinder has, the high security applications, your sidebars, everything Medico's done in the last 40 years, things like that. But the genius of the Master Ring, the bicentric, the duplex by Yale, all that stuff, we've kind of de-evolved in the ingenuity.
Yeah, we've kind of given that up. Well, see, the thing is, with what I came up with is you're using standard pins. There's more to it than that. There's some ball bearings involved, but it's a complex thing. I can't describe it much over the phone. But the thing is, I believe there's a need for it, because here's what I claim: it is equal or will exceed keypad locks for security. See, with most keypad locks today, unless you got a super high security override key, and most of them have override keys, you can just pick the override key and forget about the keypad. So you defeat the lock. But with my lock, if you put my cylinder with the keypad, it will equal or exceed the security of the keypad. I claim it to do that, because that's how hard it would be, because you can't pick it.
Well, there's a need in the marketplace for
keypad. Well, like Schlage makes that residential lock with a keypad, but they have a 5-pin zinc die-cast cylinder in there. Well, you can pick that with your eyes closed. I mean, you can pick that with one hand if you had to.
Even I can pick it.
Well, now if you were to put my cylinder in there, well, that's the end of picking the lock. You better come up with fingerprint powder and determine what buttons have been pushed. By the way, that's another way how they do it. You see what I'm saying? And go from there. But anyway, I really feel there's a market for key-operated locks in conjunction with the keypad or electronic locks. It'll be hand in glove. They'll both be going together for several years, and I hope that they can use this idea I came up with on the market. It has nothing to do with how many key changes, but it has a lot to do with security.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I deeply appreciate you taking your time. If there's any way in the future that I can repay this favor, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Okay, Richard, I will keep you in mind, and thank you for listening, although I'm amazed how much information you already knew.
Well,
you really knew a lot more about it.
I'm going to put this article in front of people who read keynotes, and you kind of got to do your research. The proverbial foot in the mouth is hard to take out. So,
well,
I'm
I'd be glad to see it. I think we have someone down at the shop there. Fred's Key Shop is a very large, one of the largest in the state of Michigan lock shops. We do just about everything. I'm just assigned to some of the old things because of my age, and I'm just doing this as a retired person because I worked on all these locks at one time or another in a lifetime.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why. If you name a particular lock, I probably have heard or seen it, especially if it's made in the United States. Yeah.
Well, I remember as a teenager watching my great uncle George, just tear through Schlage wafer locks and just telling me all these locks. This is so easy to do this. Sit down. Can't you? Let me show you how to do this. Like most of us, I could key locks before I could drive a car legally. So yeah.
Well, the Schlage. What's interesting about that Schlage wafer lock? When Schlage did that in the mid 1920s, late 20s, 26, I think. But he didn't have a pin tumbler locked cylinder to put in there. And the company that made the pin tumbler cylinders for him when they first decided to switch over to pin tumblers was Independent Lock Company. That's who made them. That's who made the cylinders for Schlage at that time. They're very early cylinders that were used in the A-line Schlages, and their knob locks were made by Elco.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Ilco should still make them because I really don't like what Schlage's done to their cylinders over the last 30 years.
Oh, they've gone Schlage. It's so sad because when Fred and I started many years ago, 60 years ago, that's when we started. We were seeing Yale start the decline. It was the beginning of zinc die casting. It was after the war, and that zinc die casting came into a big play in replacing the brass and bronze and making something cheaper. And Yale really got into it so much that their product declined. We've seen the whole thing go down. Now I watch Schlage go down because there's D-line Schlage's C-line, I should say. Most people have never heard of the C-line, but I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a stainless steel body, and everything's made of stainless steel or bronze. Anyway, I don't think they even make them anymore. It's identical to the D, except it's made out of stainless steel. We have some here on some of the large mansions on Lakeshore Drive and some of the old areas that are still being used. I mean, they're never wore out. I mean, they're 50, 60-year-old cylindrical lock sets that are still there. I mean, they last literally forever. They did, but Schlage's really gone downhill on a lot of their products. They push that F-line is what they push.
Yeah,
that's really garbage compared to what they used to make.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
it is sad. I do also lament. Although it's nice that they've brought back a lot more choices in terms of levers and finishes. But if you look into a 1920 Corbin catalog, I mean, in 1928, Corbin had 54 different finishes. So
wow,
it has been a decline.
So
yeah.
Did you ever get an old Corbin catalog?
Oh, I've got bunches of them.
Oh, dear. Some of them are hard-covered, I believe.
Oh, yes. In fact, they are.
Yeah, like a book. It looks like a regular book. I've seen them, but I don't know anybody that had one. I did look through one. I think Sargent had some like that, too. And, you're well-versed in this. This is, I don't know if I'm that much help to you. I didn't realize. When you called, I thought you were just an architect. Not just, but I mean just an architect in the fact that you design, buildings and what type hardware to use in the building. I didn't know you really knew anything that much about locks. Because a lot of architects,
Yeah, like I said, it's the practical experience. I've got some Master Ring cylinders here, but you could talk to me about servicing certain types of locks, and I have actual experience. But with Master Ring, I don't.
Do you have any? Do you have a cylindrical Master Ring lock cylinder?
I don't. I've got a rim, I've got a mortise, I've got a unit lock cylinder.
Well, I can send you a couple of them. If you give me an address, I'll send you.
Well,
one.
I would like to give you my address, but I promise to return them because it would be it's an educational exercise. I would be absolutely returning them. And if you would permit me, if you tell me your email, I will send you a label so you don't have to spend any money.
Okay, well, I'll let you do this here. I'll give you my email address.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program.